Sarada Chandra Sundaramukam Tamraravindekshana Bhaktabhishtavarabhaya Pradakaram Kaupinamatrojvalam Svatmanandarasānubhūti vivasham Sarvanavadyangakam Shrimantam Shri Ramaneshwaram Guruvaram Yogasanadhyasitam Dhyayet Shri Ramaneshwaram Dhyayet Shri Ramaneshwaram Dhyayet Shri Ramaneshwaram Hridaya Kuhara Madhye Kevalam Brahmamatram Yahamahamiti Sakshat Atmarupena Bhati Hridi Vishamanasa Svam Chinvata Majjatava Pavana Chalana Rodha Atmanishto Bhavatvam. Namo Ramana. In this Friday Atma Vichara session from Ramanacentre for Learning, Bengaluru, we have been reading Bhagavan's Upadesham from this book, Ramana Answers, Self-Enquiry, 1900 to 1950, a compilation of all the questions put by many devotees to Bhagavan on the subject matter of Atma Vichara, self-enquiry, which has been wonderfully compiled from various books into this wonderful book for us to meditate by our founder president, Sri A.R. Natarajan. And then after reading this week's question and answer, we will meditate on the answer by Bhagavan's grace. Then we will have a 20 minutes practice session of Atma Vichara. Following that, our president, Sarada Akka, would be talking about Atma Vichara as it has been contemplated in Ramana Gita. Ramana Gita is a compilation of, again, many questions put to Bhagavan and Bhagavan's answers to them in Sanskrit verse form by Ganapati Muni. And then finally, we will have the concluding prayers to Bhagavan. In this week's question and answer, it's a continued question, a series of question and answer that we have been looking into. I'll read the first few questions, which leads to today's question and answer. The devotee says, but isn't the Guru's grace or God's grace necessary for one to progress in Vichara? Bhagavan says, yes, but the Vichara that you are making is itself the Guru's grace or God's grace. Then the devotee says, I request you to bless me with your grace. Bhagavan says, go on with your enquiry. Then the devotee says, how? I do not know how to proceed. Bhagavan asks, who doesn't know? You say I, and yet you say you don't know I. Can anyone be ignorant of himself? Isn't that ludicrously impossible? If there were something else to be attained or known, then you might feel difficulty in attaining or knowing it. But in the case of the ever-present, inescapable I, how can you be ignorant? You have constantly to fight out and get rid of your false notion of I. Do that. So this is the question and answer that we will look into today. Who doesn't know? And if this question is asked, we often keep saying that I don't know who I am. So if we ask who doesn't know, then the obvious answer will be from us that I don't know. And then Bhagavan is asking, how can you be ignorant when you say I don't know? You should know you are. So therefore you are. How can you say you don't know? Do you see that it is ludicrously impossible? Is the question Bhagavan is asking. And we also find, yes, I say that I know, I say I, but I don't know. When I say I don't know I, what am I really trying to ascertain? This is the important inquiry here. When I say I don't know myself, in what way that I don't know? And like many other things, how do we know something? Either it is shown to us very objectively, something like a bottle, something like a book or a computer or a pen. If something is shown to us objectively and told this is what a pen looks like, this is what a computer looks like, then that objective knowledge, that rupa and that nama, the name and that form, we register, and therefore we recognize it as that we have known that. In here, when I say I don't know who I am, in a way that this rupa that has been given to me, obviously the form and the name, Dileep, I have somewhere understood that this is possibly not me. Though I may do a lot of vyavahara thinking that this is me, but when it comes to the spiritual practice, somewhere deep down there is a conviction that this rupa and that this nama is not me. And yet there is a possibility, like any other thing I know by name and form, I am still trying to use the same methodology, the same approach to have a vision of me and have it in some objective form, and therefore I can say that, oh, this is me. That is why, since I am not able to have a visual experience, an objective experience of myself, I feel that I have not really known myself. There may be something else which I might have not known, but somebody has gone and somebody has seen it and they explain it, and there is a very high possibility I may trust it and take it as though I know. Let's say the value of pi. There is something that somebody has told this is what it is, and I trust it, and it is accepted by large number of people. Therefore, I may accept it as me. From that perspective, if I look also, how have the set of people know me? Again, they know by this name and form, but that I know in the spiritual realm is not right. So therefore, I cannot hold on to that approach. I cannot rely on that methodology either. So I am internally trying to know by doing something that I want to know myself. That is the approach I am taking. Something I should do, something I should follow such a way that it will reveal to me who I am. And Bhagavan very beautifully, even in this death experience, when he reveals his death experience for us, he says all the experience in the Madurai thing, he says all the experience that he had when he lied down in that small hall and stretched himself and decided to hold his breath so that he can expedite the process of the death. And at the same time, he was very, very vigilant, diligently observing what is going to die. And in that he says, there was no thoughts that passed in him. It was not a thought-based understanding. It was a vivid, clear recognition that the body has become stiff, and now this is going to be, if this is the way it is going to be, this is going to be taken by the others, they are going to cremate it. But he says, my personality and I, as a current, is there to see apart from this body, here and now. And therefore there was a clear understanding that he is a separate entity from the body. So, and that was not based on a thought form. That is the most important thing. Now, when we approach the inquiry, we hold on to a thought-based understanding of it. If we only to not hold on to any thought, we become very, very diligent, as Bhagavan says, but decide not to, because Bhagavan in his death experience has very clearly said that he did not hold on to any thought-based explanation. So if we don't give reliance to thought and we recognize that this is going to be a recognition approach, then when there is no thought, when there is no objective lookout, but when one is simply there, then what remains, what is directly experienced, is that self only, because there is nothing apart from it. So, if there were something else to be attained or known, then you might feel difficulty in attaining or knowing it. So Bhagavan is very clearly saying, whatever we will be experiencing, there cannot be anything apart from it. Everything is the consciousness itself. The consciousness itself is trying to become something. We looked at it last week. If there is no becoming, and in the process of becoming, it itself is appearing in other form. If there is no becoming, in its purity, it would be available for us. Because Bhagavan is, and all the Upanishads are very clearly saying, there is nothing apart from that one truth. So if I am experiencing anything, it's only through my consciousness. It is only the consciousness that I am experiencing. I am not experiencing the object myself. I'm only experiencing it consciously. And therefore it is always at all time only the consciousness, only the existence. The existence and the consciousness is appearing as I am conscious of the object and that object exists. Both of that existence and the knowledge, the awareness of the object is coming from me. So Bhagavan says the world doesn't say it exists, you say it. So when I don't make the attention of the consciousness go anywhere, not on thoughts, not to recognize any, not to objectively know anything, not to recognize it as in a form of a thought. And if I just stay, then I experience my pure existence, my own pure consciousness. And Bhagavan is saying, how can it be difficult to attain that? Just I have to get rid of it objectively running from one thing to another. In the process of becoming something, in the process of one wants to become to as we try that I want to become a person who knows the self. Instead of trying to become something, if we stop that whole becoming, because we are that pure being consciousness, in that very subtle way, if we can recognize, Bhagavan is saying, because we that alone is, we will attain it. But in the case of ever-present, inescapable high, how can you be ignorant? You are constantly to fight out and get rid of your false notion of I. The false notion of I, it rises in the form of, I want to be that one who knows the self. In that becoming, many other approaches are constantly put in our mind, and we miss out the obvious in that process. So if we can recognize this false approach, the false notion of I, which is all rising in the form of a thought and thought-based recognition and all of it, if we just get rid of it very diligently, very watchfully, then Bhagavan says that that natural existence, that natural awareness will alone remain, and therefore it will be very clear what one's own self is. And that's why Bhagavan says, do that. So, with the immense grace of Bhagavan, with which alone we have come to this most direct path. The direct path, it is so because every time when we try to rise as an individual, we have become something, and then further we try to know something, we try to understand by a thought. Bhagavan, by putting the enquiry, asks us to inquire, to whom is this? Who am I? By putting that question, then this ignorant approach is questioned. Because when I ask, to whom is this thought, the answer will be obviously to me. And further, when I inquire, who am I? What do I really refer to as I? And try to go to the source of the I diligently. And as Bhagavan says, like in the death experience, if we don't try to answer it, but don't try to use any of the thought-based approach to find, but be and just observe what is that I refer to as I, then it becomes very clear. My nature is that of pure existence, of pure awareness. I cannot get rid of my existence. I cannot get rid of my awareness. I can get rid of the thoughts. I can get rid of my objective lookout. But this most subtle, innate thing of me, I cannot get rid of it. And therefore, that becomes the direct way to experience. And therefore, this is the most direct approach that Bhagavan has blessed us, this Atma Vichara. And it is the most beautiful sadhana for us to get established in our real nature whenever our habits and vasanas take out in the form of thoughts outwardly, which is all transitory and unreal, which all appears, disappears, everything. Whereas this pure being, this pure awareness which we verily are, which can stay without any object, that Bhagavan makes it very clear that in our daily sleep experience, we don't rely on thoughts. We don't look for any objective experience. And yet we are there to know that one was there and there was nothing as I, there was nothing as objective to see. Therefore, Bhagavan is assuring that we are entering out to entering our natural state, we need not be worried about anything because we can remain in that Niralamba state. We do it every day in our sleep. So there is nothing to be afraid about it. Rather, he says that it is the most beautiful experience, being free from everything, here and now. It is abundant grace with which alone we have come to this most direct path. For the next 20 minutes, no matter how many thoughts come, no matter whatever is the nature of those thoughts, whether it is good, bad, ugly, or even spiritual, it is all just an object to that awareness. Therefore, we should diligently inquire, who am I, to whom is this, and recognize it is for me. Further inquire, who am I, and trace the thought, the source of the I, the thought which has arisen to its source. And by repeatedly, diligently doing it, Bhagavan assures that we invoke His grace, which takes us and establishes in our natural state. With His abundant grace, for the next 20 minutes, let us practice Atma Vichara. Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana. Over to Sarada.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as the self in all beings. By the immense grace of the self manifested as Ramana, we in this part of the Satsang are meditating on the verses of Ramana Gita, which is a compilation in 18 chapters of Bhagavan's answers to questions by various devotees, and it has been recorded, classified and recorded in Sanskrit by Ganapati Muni. We are now meditating on chapter 12, which is Shakti Vichara. So in this chapter, Kapali, in the previous question, we had Kapali asking Bhagavan whether the activity of Ishvara is permanent. Nitya kim athava anityo. Which one? Ishvarasyayam vyapara ishvarasyayam drishya brahmanda kotikrit. See, the question is because it is seen, the vyapara or the activity of Ishvara is seen as separate from the Ishvara himself. So, when Kapali says, please clarify, Bhagavan says, though movement is caused by a Supreme's inherent power, actually it is unmoving. First of all, he says that the Supreme Power is the source of all the movement, but it is itself unmoving. In the earlier answer, Bhagavan had already said that there is no difference. He had said that the movement on the immovable is termed by the learned as indescribable illusion. That's what he had said. So here Bhagavan is saying this is a secret known only to sages. This is what we have seen. Only movement and activity is termed power. Everything seen is created by the Supreme Person through his own power. Chalatvameva vyaparo vyapara shaktiruchyate shaktya sarvamidam drishyam sasarjah paramah puman vyaparastu pravrittischa nivrittiriti chadvidha nivrittistha yatra sarvam atmaiva bhuditi shrutihi. So the activity is pravritti, which is moving outside, and nivritti, which is the end. It is the rise and the subsidence of thought. This is the activity of the self. Actually, there is no other activity. It is only the rise and subsidence of thought. If we seem to see a world which is outside, which is separate from us. Already in the 9th chapter on Granthi Bheda, Bhagavan had told us that this thought that the world is separate from us is an illusion. It is caused because of the power of the self pervading our whole body. When the power of the self, the consciousness pervades our whole body, we begin to think that this body is I. Because consciousness is pervading it. If consciousness is not pervading one part of the body, what happens to that part of the body? The doctor cuts that part and throws it off because it will get gangrene, and unless consciousness is pervading. And even that part where we will cut off, the dead nails, we cut it off, right? We don't keep them. So only when consciousness is pervading the body, the sense that I am alive, I am so and so, all this happens because consciousness is pervading the body. That Bhagavan had told us already over there. Here he is saying the activity. Why does it happen? Because the thought rises, because consciousness moves apparently outward. That is called pravritti. And then it gets back into the self. When it gets back into the self, that is denoted by the Vedic statement, Sarvam Atmaiva Bhutiti. Sarvam Atmaiva Bhuditi iti Shrutihi. So Bhagavan says, when everything gets back, when everything dissolves in the self, then everything is known to be Atman. Sarvam Atmaha. Then he says that when it is outward, it appears to become many. So the word sarvam is used. Nanatvam dvaita kalastham gamyate sarvamityatah abhud iti padenatra vyapara kopi gamyate. So when it goes outward, then what happens? First, duality is born. That is, I am this body. That is the birth of duality. I am this body thought comes. The moment I am this body thought comes, when duality comes, then multiplicity also comes. Many also come. So, as we saw in chapter 9, the return to the source is from the many, we come to the duality which is in us, which is I and my thoughts, I and my experiences. So that duality, from that duality, Bhagavan says, take it back to I. How? By questioning for whom are these thoughts. When we question for whom are these thoughts, what happens? The answer comes I. So from duality, we get back to single thought. But when there is a single thought also, one will lead to two, two will lead to many. So in the Atmanubhava, there is not even a single thought. Even the I thought is not there. Even that will merge. So Bhagavan says, ask, who am I? When we ask, who am I? That thought also merges into its source. So Bhagavan says, the Vyapara is there because it appears to be there. It is called, the Vedas say, Sarvam. Why? Because Kapali is asking about the activity of Ishvara. What is the activity of Ishvara? The activity of Ishvara is the manifestation, the manifest universe. So when there is activity, you see manifestation. When there is no activity, even in our deep sleep, nothing is manifest. There is no manifestation. So when you see manifestation, we can say it's the power of Ishvara which is happening, which is manifesting in this matter, in this manner. Atmaiveti vinirdeshat visheshanam samam tatah atmanyevopasamharas tajjatanam prakirtitah. So, the supreme reality, the expression self itself implies that variety must in the end subside in the self. Awareness of the self is not possible without power. Power has two aspects, activity and ground. So, Vina Shaktim Narashreshta Swarupam na pratiyate Vyapara Ashrayashreti Dvinama Shakti Ruchyate. Bhagavan says that the power has two aspects. It has the activity and it has the ground. Now this is actually the entire what is called power or Shakti is the Chaitanya. It is the Chit aspect of our being. So this Chit, the questions are arising for Kapali because the Chit is seen independent of the Sat. But in Upadesha Saram, Bhagavan has clearly said, Sattaya hi Chit, Chittaya hyaham. And then again, in Atmabodham, Adi Shankara has said, and Bhagavan has translated, that the entire illusion arises because we separate the knower from the being, the knowing from the being. When I say I know, I think that I am a knower. I am, and that am, that very being is knowledge. But what do? We see knowledge. We see knowledge first as another activity of the self. And then based on that knowledge, we take action as the activity. The actual activity part itself starts. So what is happening is, because of the separation of this Shakti, so Bhagavan says, okay, if you look at it like that, you can say there are two parts to this. There is one which is the activity part, and that which is the basis, the Chit that is one with the Sat, in which there is no division. So Bhagavan says, the learned say, the work such as creation of the universe is movement. The ground is the self. So Bhagavan says, Vyaparo Vishwasargadi Karya Muktam Manishibhihi Ashrayo Dipadam Shreshta Swarupa Natirichyate. That one supreme reality is termed as Shakti by some and Self by others, and by yet others as person or Purushaha. So Bhagavan says, don't call it the activity of the Purusha. To understand that the Purusha is the activity, is the self. There are no two at all. Don't pause it two. And then ask, is this eternal? Is that eternal? Is the world eternal? Is Prakriti eternal? Is activity eternal? There is no such thing, because the ground alone is there. Everything is included in the self, and that is eternal. So everything, if there is a word called everything, it is eternal. So let us not worry about, or even posit, forget worrying about, even posit a second entity. That's what Bhagavan is telling us over here. Swarupam manya sapeksham naiva sarvatmakatvatah shaktim vrittim swarupam cha yayevam veda vedasaha. So it is called Shakti, it is called Vritti, it is called Purusha. Vrittera bhave tu sato nana bhavo na siddhyati. Satta shaktyatirithya cha vrittirnaiva samudbhavaha vrittirabhavo tu sato nana bhavo na siddhyati satta shaktyatirithya cha vrittirnaiva samudbhavaha. So Bhagavan says, truth is also apprehended in two ways, by indication and in reality. So he says, we can say, it is spoken of as real and is experienced in reality. So when we say self alone is real, then it is an indication of the self. But when we experience the self as the only reality, we don't say anything about it. We will not say anything about it. But it is only to indicate it to somebody else that we have to say something about the self, says Bhagavan. So, what happens for us? This is why, because we are always saying things about ourselves to ourselves. We are always saying, I am this, I am not this. I want this, I don't want this. I like this, I don't like this. We are constantly, our every thought is actually saying something about ourselves to ourselves. Because most of our thoughts are not known to anyone else. Nobody is listening to our thoughts. We are the ones who are constantly talking to ourselves with our thoughts. And what are we telling ourselves? This is what I am, this is what I am, this is what I am. So what am I doing? I am indicating myself, but I am not remaining as the reality. I am not remaining as the self. I am not remaining as my true self. I am busy, even when I talk about the self, I use it as an indication. The self is the only reality. The self alone is real. I say that. The self is consciousness. The self is existence. The self is bliss. So I am talking about it. I am indicating its presence. But if we stop this indicating activity, if we don't have to indicate anything to ourselves, what will happen? The self alone will remain. So whenever a thought arises, Bhagavan says, understand this, you're only indicating something about yourself. Why don't you simply enjoy your true nature? Why do you want to keep on indicating something about yourself when you yourself are available to yourself all the time? When the self is available, why should we be talking about it? Why should we be thinking about it? Why should there be any activity related to it? So Bhagavan says, it is the reality. The self is the reality. When we are talking about it also, we are experiencing it, but only once removed as an indicated experience. Instead of that, Bhagavan says, let us get back to the reality itself. Let us get back to our own true nature. And this happens when we do not worry about, even when thoughts arise about the world. When most of the thoughts will be about the world, let us question, let us not worry, how is this world created, who has created it, what is the power, how does it work? Yes, the great ones have asked all these questions because sometimes these questions arise in our mind. But when we go to Bhagavan's answers, we understand those questions are not relevant. Actually, they are not at all relevant because there is no division between the self and anything else, the self and its activity. So we should not see them as separate, rather we should get back to the unison by holding on to the self alone through self-enquiry. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramana.
Namo Ramana. Apara Satchit Sukhavarirashi Yasyor Mimatram Bhuvanam Samastam Guhahitam Tam Ramanam Gabhiram Chinta Vihinam Hrudi Chintayami Chinta Vihinam Hrudi Chintayami. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana Dileep.